Okay. All right, hello. I'd like to thank all of you guys for coming here. This is a roundtable discussion with 3 Olympians that we are running in conjunction with our Winter in Action exhibit on display now, and the Olympics starting next week. So hopefully, you know, this works out. Dan, you're good. And yeah, hopefully we can get some insight into the Olympic Games from the people who have been there themselves. So we're going to start with just a brief bio on our 3 Olympians. Joining us on Zoom is Hank Kashiwa. Hank is from Old Forge and was a member of the U.S. Alpine ski team from 1967 to 1972. After being an alternate on the 68 Olympic Games in Grenoble, he skied the World Cup circuit from 68 to 71, finishing in the top 10 6 times. In 72, after winning the U.S. Championship, he qualified for the Olympic team and skied the downhill and giant slalom events in Sapporo at the age of 22. Post-Olympics, he joined the World Ski Tournament, the World Pro Ski Circuit, winning the World Pro title in 1975. And a side note, his mother is the one who started View many, many years ago. On the end over here, we have Erin Hamlin from Renton, New York. She is a 4-time Olympian and the first American luger to medal in a singles competition at any Winter Olympics, which won bronze in 2014. And she also became the first non-European woman to win an Olympic medal in the luge. At the Pyeongchang Olympics in 2018, she was selected as the U.S. flag bearer for the U.S. during the opening ceremonies. In addition to her Olympic success, Hamlin also won 2 gold medals and 2 silver medals at the FIL World Luge Championships throughout her celebrated career. In the middle here, we have Rob Esche. Rob grew up in Whitesboro and began his professional hockey career in 1998 with the Phoenix Coyotes. Esche saw his career take off when he was traded to the Philadelphia Flyers in 2002, winning the William M. Jennings Trophy with his teammate Roman.
Touch mine.
Okay, there you go. In 2003, which is awarded to the goalkeeper or goalkeepers for the team that allowed the fewest goals during the regular season. Esche was selected as one of 3 goalies to don the red, white, and blue for the 2006 U.S. Olympic team in Torino. He was also a member of the U.S. Teams at the 2004 World Cup of Hockey and the World Championships in 2008 and 2009. So, we're going to start with Hank. When did you get into skiing?
I started when I was about 2 years old. It'd be interesting to hear how I got started. I was born in Manhattan, New York. And my parents had both gone to Syracuse. My father was in the forestry school. And when I was old enough to start playing in the streets of New York, they said, oh, we better move out of here. So they moved up to where Dad did his field work, a place called Old Forge. Yay! And when I was either right around 2 or just before, when people ask me how I got started,
I always say it was my mother's foot, because I'm the eldest of 5, and my sister Jode, who's on this Zoom right now, was hot behind me. So Mom had her household chores to do, and Jody coming along, so she didn't want me around. That's how I got started.
Now, at what point did you realize that you could compete at the highest levels of skiing?
You know, I never thought about it. I guess when I was in junior high, I started reading the ski magazines and saw Billy Kidd and Jimmy Hugo and Spider Savage and Moose Barrows and all those names start to pop up. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So I just followed it. And it really didn't happen that I thought I could be a part of that gang for many years after that. I didn't aspire to it at the time, but it sort of happened through being involved in our schools, the town and web schools, ski programs, physical education, which turned into a ski program. And then I caught the eye of the Eastern regional coaches and did well in those, racing against the college guys in the East. Then I caught the eye of the national coaches and was invited to a training camp in Bend, Oregon, where I again did pretty well. And from that, this was in 1967, summer of '67, obviously. I was invited to a training camp in Portillo, Chile. And the Olympics were in '68 in Grenoble. So the French, the Swiss, and the Austrians were training there for the Olympic Games. And I did well in some inter-country time trials. And one night, Coach Bob Beatty came over and sat down next to me and said, "Henry," called me Henry, and he said, "How would you like to be on the U.S. ski team, on the Olympic team, and not have to go in the Army?" which was a big issue then because of obviously the Vietnam crisis. So that's the first time I really thought about, holy smokes, this could happen.
Now, you were
We didn't have time trials in those days.
So you were an alternate in '68.
Right.
Was there any level of disappointment that you weren't getting to compete in the Olympics, or were you kind of just like, I'm just waiting my turn to get to the next one?
Well, a funny thing happened. In training, I caught a tip and sprained my ankle pretty severely. So I wasn't going to race either way, even if I was needed. So it wasn't a big disappointment.
Mm. All right, so Rob, when did you start playing hockey?
So I actually started playing hockey pretty late. I played football and baseball and basketball and tennis. And then when I was 12 years old, I was actually getting ready to go to a football practice. My father was signing my brother Henry up for hockey at Whitesboro, and he rang the house phone, and I answered, and he just asked if I wanted to obviously sign up, and I said, sure, I'll try it. And then it was actually the advent of the Utica Devils that were in town then, and my father took us to all the games. We had a great time, but obviously I'd never been on the ice. The first day I practiced, actually, I was miserable, I was terrible, I couldn't skate, I hated everything, and I just wanted to quit. My father talked me into giving it one more shot, and for whatever reason, it was a Sunday practice, I'll never forget it. I don't know, things just started to click. I don't know how it was even possible, even when you end up coaching kids. That doesn't seem to work that way, but things just started to make sense to me gliding around on the ice, and I enjoyed it. And I guess from that point on, I was addicted to it and never looked back.
So when did you get serious about it?
Well, I think I've always been serious. I'm very, I'm a very driven person, and there's things that I like. And like I said, being addicted to the sport, I got all the magazines, the Hockey News, junior magazines, couldn't watch enough of it, wanted to go to all the Utica Devils games. And I just got entrenched into the sport as at a young age. But I'm a little bit like Hank in the fact that, I never really looked at it as I'm going to the NHL. It was more of a true passion and love for the sport that, I didn't really think of what the outcomes were going to be. I just more or less thought about, playing one more day type of mentality.
So when you played junior hockey?
I did.
For a while.
Yeah, I did not go to college. I moved away when I was 16. I moved up to Ottawa for 1 year at junior A Tier 2, and then I got drafted into the OHL in junior hockey, and I played 3 years there. And then after that, I went professionally into the American Hockey League and then on to the NHL.
So in 2006, you get a call?
Yeah, so it's a little different, I think, than a lot of folks when they move to professional athletes. In all fairness, I'm not an advocate of that, to be honest. I did find the romanticism in the 80 Olympics in 84, 88, and I think even maybe 92. USA had a team that was still amateur. But they scouted you based on your performance in the NHL, and I was coming off a few solid seasons. Oddly enough, my favorite memory is 2002. I was at the Olympic tryouts when I was in Salt Lake, and Herb Brooks was our coach, the famed Herb Brooks from the 1980 Olympics. And that year I was right on the edge of making the team, but I was still very young, and I hadn't really defined myself in the NHL footprint, so to speak. So that was actually one of my more favorite because, it was all the household names that I grew up on, the Chelioses and Mike Richters and, Keith Kachucks and Johnny Leclerc, Brett Hulls, Jeremy Roenick. I could go on and on. It was just a very fun experience out in Boulder, Colorado. But in 2006, it was more of a phone call. Pete LaViolette called me up and said that I was going to be one of the 3 goalies. He wasn't sure what he was going to do, and that was it was something that really floors you. There's no two ways about that.
Yeah. So, Erin, luge is not something that you kind of stumble upon. You kind of have to go out and find it. So, what made you decide to go out to Syracuse that one day to the sliding screening? Is that
Slider
what it was?
search, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get that closer. Yeah, it's definitely not your everyday sport. There's no, sign up on a Sunday and go to youth luge. But it's actually my dad, who's here somewhere, had seen an ad for it, and basically the kind of ad to say, hey, come try this out. And my brother had tried out before. I wasn't able to when he first did it. I had to be a year older, and so when I finally got the chance to, I was like, okay, yeah, let's try it. I didn't really have any idea what I was getting myself into, to be honest, and it was just one of those cool opportunities to try something different, see what happened. Never in a million years thinking that this is where it would end up putting me, but yeah, it was just one of those on a whim, let's try this out kind of things.
So when did you get kind of hooked to it?
I mean, I'm a pretty competitive person, so I think as soon as it was one of those scenarios where, you're put into this pool of athletes and you want to try and make the next cut, it was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to try that. Even not even thinking about like the bigger picture of the Olympics or anything like that. It was just that competitive atmosphere of, we're going to consider 500 kids and 100 of them will make it to the next stage, and then just whittling it down from there. I just think I was hooked to that sense. Mm-hmm. I was never a daredevil or like a adrenaline junkie, and I'm not still, which is ironic. So it's not like I was, addicted to going fast, but I think you don't go fast right away, so I wasn't completely terrified. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and it was something that I had to work to be good at, and I think my competitive, stubborn self was like, okay, I have to keep trying to be better, and that ended up serving me well.
And at what point did you realize that like this could take you around the world and get you at Olympic Games?
So because luge is a pretty small sport in the U.S., the pipeline of getting involved at all is to the Olympics. That's really the only kind of path you can take. There's not a lot of other options. There's no like AAU circuit for luge, unfortunately. But right away that's something that is out there, that that's a potential future, but just a very small percentage of people actually get there. So not necessarily the thought of I'm going to do that someday, but like, wouldn't that be cool? Let's see how it goes, kind of thing was pretty early on.
So this is a question for all 3 of you now. When did it hit you that you were an Olympian? You were heading to the one of the most decorated competitions in the world. We'll start with Hank.
Okay. Would you just repeat that question? I'm having a little trouble hearing the speakers.
Yeah. So when did it hit you that you were an Olympian? Was it at trials? Was it at the opening ceremonies when you were first, going up the mountain at the games?
No, not really, because in that time we didn't have trials, and there was no World Cup, so they didn't have any way to qualify us by our World Cup standings. It was just up to the coach to select the team. And as I said, Bob Beatty selected me. And it was exciting, to know that I was going to go to Grenoble, and which was my first trip to Europe in the first place. I raced in a couple, I guess the level below the Olympic athletes, and so I waited around, then went to Grenoble, and in training, as I said, I was injured.
Rob, when did you realize, or when did it hit you that you were an Olympian?
Well, I guess it's a little twofold. When I got home, I had a chance to pack. We were getting ready to head over, and I was I had a house in Westmoreland. There was a massive snowstorm that day, and one of my close friends called me up and wanted to take me out for a drink. Alicia Dix wanted to take me for a drink to celebrate with her and her husband, and somebody else. She made some excuse up. And I got in the biggest fight with her. I'm like, I'm leaving, and I got to leave in the morning. I haven't packed. I got to get out of here. We get in this big fight, and she goes, well, I'm coming up to your house. We're going, to go celebrate before you leave. And I said, all right, whatever. So I get in the car, and I was pouting the whole way there. I'm yelling. I'm like, what do you take me out of my habits and all this stuff for? We drive down Varick Street, and there must have been 150 people there in this big snowstorm, and I can't remember the name of the bar. It changed names a few times, but it was right, and I walk in, and there's just this big, massive crowd, and I think that is when it was like the passion for the Olympics is something that is so profound, and it's hard to put words to on it represents a country as opposed to an organization. And I think that was what was so amazing. After that, I think the second form of that, you really become focused, and at the time we were, in the NHL, and all of us as players, we had one goal, which was, to win a medal. Obviously that didn't happen, but, so we kind of block everything out, and you just kind of get that tunnel vision. But I do remember that day and that snowstorm in Varick Street. It was amazing. It was one of the best parties I've ever been to.
And Erin, you were just a teenager, right? At your first one?
Yeah, I was 19.
So when does that dawn on you that you're doing something that not many people get to?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Just our lead up to the Olympics is a lot of racing, a lot of preparation just to qualify for the team, and so that happens, you qualify based on your results at races, and so we fortunately were able to have the last race to qualify for the Olympics was in Lake Placid, and so we had a home World Cup, which was really cool, and I literally needed like one specific result in that race in order to make it without having to race off within my team, and I ended up getting that. Which was pretty surreal. It actually happened because of another athlete's mistake. I bumped up a spot, so fun fact. But it was a pretty crazy moment, and I don't think it really set in until like the whirlwind of the Olympics started. I mean, there was a lot that we did. They announced the team. We did press conferences in New York City. We did a couple different things, but then we go back on the road for the next like month before the Olympics, and so we were still racing and still competing. So I think you're kind of business as usual for a bit. And that first time for me in 2006, I was still a junior athlete. Like there was no expectation, and so it was just kind of, go and have fun and see how it goes. And so once we got to the Olympics and you get like your swag, you get all the free stuff, that was probably the moment where you're like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then you get to the Olympics, and I remember seeing a couple of athletes that we're big name athletes, and it's like you're all in the same Team USA gear and in the same place for the same reason, and that was really cool. But yeah, it took a bit, probably not till I was actually there. I didn't have any cool bar send-off parties when I was 19.
Out on the trails somewhere, out in a cornfield in Remsen.
Hey now.
So at 19, you walk in with the Olympic team. Who are you most starstruck by? Is there any one person that you remember seeing?
In 2006, oh man, it's a long time ago. I'm not sure. I remember I remember Pavarotti sang at the opening ceremony, if that counts. That was pretty cool. I feel like that was the most famous person that I was in the same location as during the games.
Yeah.
But I did meet Bodie Miller at those Olympics, which was really cool. I guess, yeah, that might be it. Later in other games, I met people that I was really psyched about. But
Did you guys know each other at that point?
No.
nope.
No.
There wasn't some Utica area
No.
connection?
No.
Okay.
Mm-mm. No one picked up on it either. I'm kind of surprised, but
Yeah. So all of you competed at World Championships as well. Is there a difference between wearing the U.S. jersey at a World Cup event or a World Championship versus the Olympics? We'll start with you, Erin, I guess.
yeah, I mean, I raced in quite a few, definitely a lot of World Cups and quite a few World Championships, and there is something different about the Olympics, I think, just because of all, like, the excitement and it's the biggest stage. I guess on paper, for us, World Championships is actually a deeper field. There are more athletes competing in it, but for the Olympics, there's all the glitz and glamour and the more widespread attention. So it does feel different, and you're there with athletes from a bunch of different sports, and kind of like Rob said, that Team USA, that patriotism and feeling like you're representing the whole country. Whereas at World Championships, you don't get that because it's just your own sport and your own team. But it is still a big event, so it's still important.
Mm-hmm. Rob?
I think for me, I was very blessed and fortunate to represent the country 9 times, 2 in the World Juniors. I represented 4 times for the World Championships, and then a couple others, World Cup, Olympics, and the Pacific Cup when I was a kid. For me, I always felt, when you play in an organization, it's obviously cool. You have that brotherhood, that bond with your teammates and your coaches and your general manager, and everybody sticks up for one another. But when you pull a jersey over your head that has USA on it, it's very inspirational. You think of wars, you think of the ability and the blessing that you have just to be there. And the people that laid down a much bigger sacrifice. So for me, it was always a very special honor, and it was always important to represent the country, as such. But I enjoyed every single time.
Mm-hmm. Hank, did you notice, or did you have a feeling of something being different putting on the USA jersey at the Olympics?
Well, I think so, because Sapporo was a special place due to our heritage. Mm-hmm. My dad was Japanese, my mom Irish, and they were able to come and watch. And so the thing I remember the most is getting our opening ceremony uniforms and putting them on, and then walking into, I don't think there was even a stadium then, there were just a bunch of bleachers. And so we walked in, and it was pretty cool to wave up at the crowd, and yeah, it was exciting.
So, Rob, being part of USA Hockey, there is a very special association with that, with probably the greatest U.S. sports moment in history, and with the '80 Olympics. Is there extra pressure on you, or as a hockey team, every year putting that on, thinking they're gonna run the '80 Olympics over and over and over again during our games, and is there pressure there?
And I think this might go back to what I was saying initially. I think once you become a professional athlete, you're so trained mentally to block out so much. You know, there's a lot of noise out there, and the ability to perfect that skill set mentally to just block everything out, I think is one thing. And I do think it's important that amateurs, you know, get back into the sport. In saying that, obviously it's all around you. You know, that's all they talk about is the 1980 Olympics. And, you know, I think the argument for me is it's not supposed to be duplicated. And I think when USA Hockey finally got that mindset, because when they beat Russia and went on and beat Finland, it was a different era. It was a time when, you know, there wasn't Americans getting drafted in the NHL. It was unheard of. You know, it was predominantly a Canadian sport. The late 80s started to have a few more college kids make it up. They had some Russians that defected and came over with McGillney and Fetisov and things of that nature. And the sport as it's evolved, I think USA Hockey has taken a different narrative, which I think is healthy, and you've seen them win a lot of gold medals on different stages, whether it's the World Championships, whether it's the World Juniors of hockey. A lot of young, great talent is now on the rise. But in saying that again, I think the 1980 Olympics was a very special group of dedicated individuals they had the hearts of lions. You know, they were not as skilled as the teams that they were playing at all. I mean, it's very well documented, as we all know, but you know, it had a great coach in Herb Brooks, and I just feel like it's not supposed to be duplicated, you know, and I think that was USA Hockey around the late 90s. They started getting that narrative to the players and to the coaching staff. We're not trying to duplicate 1980. We're just trying to win a gold medal, and I think that was, it takes a lot of pressure off the athletes when it's stated that way. Yeah.
Now, Erin, the luge, the U.S. traditionally has not had success. I think since 1955, before 2014, we had won one medal at any stage of national competition.
I mean, I think like World Cups there were, but World Championships, I was one of the second,
Yeah. So knowing that any success that you have is going to be historic, does that add pressure to you every time you slide?
On a like normal season to season basis, not really. It's not something that I would go into every race thinking about. Like World Championships, when I did win, that was kind of its own special circumstance because it was a home World Championships. And there is that little extra pressure of trying to defend your turf and knowing that I could potentially win just based on how well I slid there. And other than that, not really on a regular basis. Like we knew that we weren't historically the strongest team out there. Yeah, the Germans win all the time, but we were still like, we knew where we ranked on a day-to-day basis with other people. So, you know, there were a lot of times where we could contend. It was just a matter of showing up on that day and doing it. The Olympics, though, were always a little bit of a different story because we had never won a singles medal. We did win doubles medals in '98 and 2002, so that kind of broke that streak a little bit, but singles athletes had never won and a woman had never won a medal, and so that question came up every time the Olympics came around. Is this going to be the year that somebody wins a medal? And it was kind of, I was tired of hearing that question, so it was nice to finally end it.
Yeah, all right. Why don't women have doubles?
They do now.
They do?
Okay. Everyone get excited. 2026, we might have women's doubles in the Olympics.
Oh, all right.
This weekend, they're actually contesting their first women's doubles world championships.
Oh,
like
no kidding.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. So they, in the push to have equal opportunity for men and women in the sport, they started a women's doubles program internationally, like I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, and it started at the junior level, and they've finally started to have senior level World Cups, and they're actually traveling to get more training with the junior World Cup circuit, because at the senior level there's not enough time on the ice to get them the training that they would need because it's extremely difficult to do doubles. So yeah, they have started doing that, and hopefully we'll see it. Doubles is technically an open category, so it could be a guy and a girl, it could be 2 girls, but historically only men have raced doubles. Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay, so I should have done more research. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, or they should do a better job of publicizing it.
So Robert, you're the only one here who didn't compete individually. Do you think your Olympic experience differed from others?
I think you know, every individual takes in the Olympics in their own way. You know, we're all different, obviously. I think when it comes to team sports, the one advantage team sports has is obviously the ability to insulate yourself amongst great teammates, and you know, it's more of a system that you're playing as opposed to, you know, you're looking at one person, whether it's an Erin Hamlin or a Tiger Woods, or, you know, like, it's one individual out there, and the mental strain on individual sports, I think, is much more profound than in team sports. There's a lot of players that don't have their best games, but they still win medals, you know, in a team sport. So I do think you're definitely well more insulated than, you know, individuals.
And you made the Olympics when
Travis,
you were...
if you can hear me.
Yes.
I've lost audio.
Heather's going to fix that.
I've lost the audio too. When the woman bumped something, we can no longer hear.
Can you
That's
hear us
better.
now?
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
better. Thank you.
So Rob, you were in your late 20s when
Yeah.
you made the team?
Yeah, I was 27 or 28.
Yeah. So do you think you had a different appreciation for it than a lot of the younger athletes who make it?
I don't know. I have a much better appreciation for it now than I did then. So I don't know. I think again, it's a little bit of a tricky situation when you're looking at it from a standpoint of, you know, you've already played 8 or 9 years in the NHL, and you're just so driven and focused on winning a Stanley Cup that I think for me, I wish I was actually a little bit more mature, if you want the truth. You know, and I think I wish I would have prepared a little differently. And that's a tough part of the Olympics or World Cups or World Championships. You know, you got one kick at that can. All athletes say that they're going to be back, you know, the next time around, and you know, enough of us haven't had that opportunity. You know, so you got to take it for the time that it does happen.
Yeah, and you get your start in 2006 was against Russia.
Yeah. Yep.
What was your thought as you skated out there? Was it just another game, or?
No, I think, and that's where I was talking about my maturity. For me, in my head, I think Russia was a great team. But in my head, I was thinking, you know, I was going to be the reason that, you know, we're going to win the game, and everybody's going to be, you know, appreciative of that, and you know, so on and so on. And reality is, as you get older, you realize, you know, you don't get experience till you actually needed it. You know, and for me, all I had to do was go out and do my job. And in that game, I happened not to, because again, you start to put it more on yourself that you're going to be the reason that a team's going to win, and that's not how successful teams win. So like I said, I wish I was a touch more mature, but it was what it was. Still an amazing experience nonetheless.
Yeah. Hank, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Awesome. So you competed in 1972 at a time when a place like Lake Placid could still hold an Olympics. You went on to do commentary in 92 and 94. Over those 20 or 22 years, how much had the games changed at that point?
Dramatically. Holy smokes. I mean, the Olympics had come alive by probably 1980, when the Mayer brothers in Sarajevo won first and second in the slalom on the last day. There were more people. It was very significant in terms of athleticism to the world, and it was great to see. And I got the inside view. And by the way, I also went to Nagano in '98, all three with CBS. So I got to see 3 Olympics through the lens of a television camera.
And Erin, you, as a competitor, over your 16 years of Olympics, did you notice a change?
I think I learned how to experience them differently, so they were all pretty different. There was a change in the sense of where they started hosting them. They were in much more random places. Like Torino wasn't necessarily a hotbed for winter sports, but at the same time, you're still in the Italian Alps, and so it made sense. But after that, it was a little bit more random. But I would say, I think by the time I went in 2006, it had already kind of become that more massive, commercialized, very big business event. So they were all kind of that kind of vibe, I will say.
So a couple questions for you, Erin. Why are German women so good at the luge?
Oh, yeah. Okay, no. They have such a really good program. They start when they're so young. They have 4 tracks that are competed on the World Cup level every year in their country, and their country would fit inside some United States. And so just the accessibility to the sport at a really early age, that hands down is probably the one of the biggest reasons. It's funny, recently I had another thing occur to me that was a really good answer to this question, and now I can't think of it. But it's really just the historical nature of the sport for them. They've been doing it for so long in Germany and doing it competitively and successfully, and success breeds success. And when you have that inter-team competition where you can pick from, a ton of athletes, you're going to end up being able to pick the best ones, whereas we just are happy to have numbers in the United States. And so I think that's one of the biggest reasons. Not to take anything away from their athletes, they are super dedicated and they put all of their time, they train the same as we do. And so it just so happens that they have years and years and years of, their pipeline and their development. They have, whether it be the technical side with their equipment, they have the tracks at their disposal easier than we do to test equipment and have the best of the best when it comes to technology. So that's a little bit better as well.
So in 2014, before your final run, you were in the medal. You were on the podium as long as you
didn't mess up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So knowing that, what was going through your head as you were sitting up there?
Somehow I was not nervous at all. That whole entire Olympics, for each one of my 4 runs, I was super relaxed. I was able to just kind of, have fun. That's something I always strive to do, and luckily I was able to do that at that moment. But it really, I knew exactly what I had to do. I did have a decent amount of time on the person right behind me, so I knew that I would have to mess up pretty huge. If I had a small mistake, I think I would have been okay. But I also knew that in my training that week, which wasn't perfect, it wasn't awesome every time, but I had gotten down the track successfully in almost every possible way. So I knew sitting at the handles, if I mess up, I've had to navigate that already. I've had that plan B work out for me. So I kind of had this arsenal of options, which is rare. But I think that's where my experience really stepped in, and it was okay, I've been down not how I want to a few times, so I knew if I made a mistake, I could lean on that and have it happen. And really, it was just kind of a cool moment. I'm sure if I sat back and thought through this like I am right now, I would have been way more nervous.
Yeah. As you're going down the track, do you know as you're going down that I got this?
Not always. Sometimes you think that, and then you get a really rude awakening when you see the clock. And that's the worst, when you think you've had a really good run and the time doesn't show it. But in that race, there was a certain part of the track out of curve 11 that was one of the spots okay, if something's going to go wrong, this is where it's going to happen. And when I made it out of there, and I knew I only had a couple of curves left, and I hadn't made a mistake, I'm there is no way I've lost that much time. I'm good. At that point, it kind of started to hit me okay, this is actually going to happen. But that's rare. It usually, sometimes you can say, okay, if I make it down clean, both runs or all 4 runs in the Olympics, we should be okay, but not always.
I was going to say, I rewatched your final run yesterday, and your hands went up pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like before you sat up, your hands were already up there.
Yeah.
So
I knew, and
Yeah.
that for sure. Yeah, and that is rare. But at the same time too, like it would have been devastating if I had not gotten the medal, but I don't know what else I could have done in that moment. Like I had 4 really good runs, so I mean at that point.
Yeah. So you're on the podium. What's going through your head as they're playing the German anthem? And
I've heard that before. No.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I know the German anthem really well, but in that moment though, it was just so cool. You know, it was a huge stage for the medal ceremony number 1, and they actually took us into like a green room to tell us, and someone came in to tell us how it was all going to work, and they show you where to walk and like do all these things. And because of the way that the podium was set up, I was actually, I don't remember if I was first or not, but I think I remember not being first, so I was glad that I wasn't. And I just remember being really nervous about not tripping on a shoelace or something ridiculous. But in that moment, it was just so cool. I don't know if I heard the German anthem, to be honest, because it was just such an awesome moment. One of the coolest moments that I never thought would happen in my career. There was a huge crowd, so it was exciting, and the massive stage that was way too big. I don't really know why it was so big.
And where's your medal now? Where do you keep it?
It's under my chair right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but like in my sock drawer, really. Honestly.
Your sock drawer?
Yeah, it's nice to have it accessible so it can be shared when I have the opportunity. At some point, I think I'll probably get it, like, I don't know, in a display at home of some sort, but
now its sock drawer is good?
It works. Yeah.
Hank, so after your skiing, or after your Olympic run, you kind of became the face of U.S. skiing, showing up on nationally run TV series and, becoming a commentator. And you went on Superstars in 1976 and were a finalist, which I was rewatching some clips of Superstars. That's the craziest thing I think I've ever seen. Watching Mike Schmidt go around a track on a bicycle against Lou Ferrigno. I mean, it's quite bizarre. But you were right in there with them. How surreal was it getting to the point where you were, coming from Old Forge and growing up on Macaulay Mountain?
How did I what?
How surreal was your career, knowing Old Forge and starting on Macaulay and then going everywhere you went?
Well, I think it's funny because I never aspired to any of this. It was sort of the luck of the Irish side of our family, and is that the correct way to put it, Joe? My sister's watching, so both of them are. But it was a lot of fun to continue,
Montana.
because we thought we had a good shot at growing our sport.
You mean by Olympics?
And I'd like to congratulate Erin on her efforts, her career as an athlete, her medal, and certainly Rob on his wonderful career, and the fact that he is now, if I'm correct, Rob, you're working with younger hockey players to bring them into the sport. Is that correct?
Yeah, yep, yes.
Well, congratulations on that. That's a wonderful thing. And that's what we thought we were doing. We had that series on, it was called Skiing Magazine on TV. It ran for 15 years, and people still remember it, believe it or not. Some of them also think that I raced in 32 Olympics at Lake Placid.
So if you were able to ski on Volant skis during your heyday, how much more medals, or how many more medals would you have?
I would have won everything. No question about it. My brother Bucky's invention. It was quite a run. We were the third most popular ski in in the United States by 1996, we were making 100,000 pairs of skis. I know a lot of them were sold in the areas, well, on the Upper East Coast, Colorado, California. We had quite a following, and my son just got me a new pair, because we sold the business to Atomic in 2000, and they're making skis in Austria now. And my son just got me a pair that were made in Austria, and it's all I'm skiing on now. So I can vouch for their wonderful characteristics, and they're the fastest skis I've skied on in a while.
All right, so this is another question for all of you, and we'll start with Rob. How do you consume the Olympics now? Do you think you have a special perspective of what's going on?
I wouldn't say special. Again, I think it's for me. There's so many individuals in the sport and the countries. You don't know what these, some of these countries they can't wait to get to the Olympics. It could be a war-tattered country, and it means so much more to them than some other countries. I do know that when I was over there, it was very humbling to see, some people, how they even got to the Olympics, with their personal issues or with their own country's issues. And saying that, how I consume now, I think, it's a challenge when they're, so far on the other side of the world, the timing of some of them, but I watch them all the way through. I enjoy them. I have a fun time, rooting for Team USA at every sport, just like the rest of the country.
Erin, you?
I do think it's interesting, since I'm very closely, this will be actually my first time not being a part of one since 2006. So to be determined a little bit, but I'll actually be doing some of the commentary work similar to what Hank did for NBC for Luge. So you'll get to hear my voice if you watch any of the Luge races. So that'll be a hugely different experience, but I'll still kind of be in the thick of it, just because I'll have to know what's going on. Any other year, I would probably be going to the games, but current circumstances, we're doing it from Connecticut, so that'll be unique. But as far as, just consuming the Olympics in general, like even the Summer Olympics, like I try to tune in as much as I can. It is cool because you do have a little bit of a perspective of, the behind the scenes, just having been through it. And I think for the Winter Games, it'll be that to an extreme, because I'll know so many of the athletes that are still competing, and just how, it all happens. But also that personal connection to so many people there will be really fun to cheer them on.
Yeah, are you going to be firing texts throughout the entire games to people competing?
I've got to toe the line really carefully of athlete and media. I now have that insider line, but I know as an athlete I wouldn't have wanted to be pestered all the time by someone from the media, so I've got to be careful and not make my friends mad.
So Hank, you've been on both sides as a competitor and on the broadcasting end. How do you consume the Olympics?
Is the question more, do I look at the athletes and try to feel what they're feeling, or can I relate to what they're feeling?
Yeah. Do you think that you watch it differently than, say, your siblings?
Oh, maybe. Although all of our family raced, and kind of our saying within the family is if you don't, excuse my language, if you don't have to pee when you're in the starting gate, you're not nervous enough. You have to turn that nervousness into positive energy, and I see that happening, especially with the ski racing athletes. But I see it with all of them. They're all nervous, and they all have expectations, and they want to do their best, and they want to win a medal. So it's, I can relate to it.
So I got one last question, and then we're going to take some questions from the audience if anybody has any. Heather will be walking around with a mic so you can ask. But Hank, we'll start with you. What's your best Olympic memory?
having my parents there was very special. Unfortunately, it wasn't on the ski hill. We had very changeable conditions during the downhill. And the early racers had a big advantage over us because it started to snow, that salty snow you get when you're next to the ocean. Sapporo's an island, so we got that kind of snow. It was very hard to wax for, to prepare our skis. But it was exciting just to be there. It was fun to be in the Olympic Village. It was really fun to, when I walked through the gate with my mother, I walked right through, all the kids with their autograph books thinking that I was just another one of them. But I turned around and Mom was there signing autographs.
What? My mother was signing autographs.
Because they thought that she was a coach or maybe even a participant. But she had an Anglo face, and it was pretty funny.
Erin, how about you? Best Olympic moment?
That's tough to pick one. Obviously, winning a medal is really awesome, and so is carrying the flag. And I was fortunate too, my family got to be there at every one. One that still stands out to this day, though, is my first Olympics and opening ceremonies. That was a crazy experience. You know, we walk in and the stadium was just so loud. But somehow I actually saw like my family, like they like my brother has a picture of me looking into the lens of the camera, like I saw them and like waved and said hi, which is unreal because there were, I don't know how many tens of thousands of people, and we're just walking in like waving and doing whatever, and actually saw them. So that was like how my Olympic career kicked off, right? Like, and it just by chance happened. And then it happened again in Russia. Was it Russia? Where's my dad? Yeah. And we left the stadium. They shuttle all the athletes in the buses to the stadium and then shuttle them back to the village. And it's always late at night. And they had a bunch of food. Most people know athletes like to eat all the time. We need snacks regularly, and they know this. So they had a huge table of snacks and like bag lunches for us to take on the bus on the way home. And we come out of the stadium, and my parents were there. And I'm like, how did you even get back here? This is like not somewhere the average fans should have been able to access. Like, this is definitely a security breach of some sort. But we're like out getting on the bus, and they're standing there like, hey, we haven't slept in 70 hours, but we made it to Russia, and we were here. And that, I was like, yep, this would be what would happen to my family at the Olympics.
I was going to say, anybody who watched the Olympics while you were running, they noticed your family. Like, everybody noticed your family.
Yeah, they seem to be
out everywhere.
Yeah, and they clearly were that night. But it was just so crazy because that happened again, like with opening ceremonies. And I think in Vancouver, some of my family ended up seeing outside the bus. Like, it's just weird that they were like everywhere. Yeah. So those were cool memories, just being able to share that experience too with them.
Yeah. And Rob, how about you?
I'm with Erin and Hank. I think for me, the most exciting thing was having your family, being able to go through everything to get over there and to come join you and that, you know, and they're pulling for you and they're there for the good times and the bad times. And I also agree with Hank. I think it was Olympic Village, you know, it was a lot of fun being with all the athletes. Maybe not necessarily where you appreciated them so much. You know, a lot of different countries, some of them walk with a different swagger, some are a little bit more cocky, some of them are outgoing, and the Olympic Village was, you know, it's the whole globe coming together and living in one area, and to me that was pretty special just to be able to rub elbows with all of the athletes.
All right, so where's Heather? All right, does anybody have any questions in the crowd that they want to ask? You can just raise your hand and Heather will get up there to you.
Testing. This question is for all three of you. How do you stay in shape now?
You're implying that we're in shape.
What happened?
Anyone want to go?
Yeah.
I don't know, Hank, do you stay in shape?
I'm not letting anybody see me.
I'll take that. I ski probably 50 or 60 days a year. I play golf at least 40 rounds a year. And I hike especially in the fall, try to get ready to ski?
I think realistically for me, my beautiful fiance over here got me a Peloton for my birthday a year ago, and I try to ride it anywhere from 4 to 6 times a week. So I really have enjoyed that the last year, and I'm all, you know, I guess hearing Hank's answer, I'm kind of a little bit like him too. I get on the ice a lot with the kids, and I try to get myself out there and stay active.
And yeah, I definitely just like to try and get outside. When I was competing, I didn't get to do a lot of the other physical activities of like hiking and biking, and you know, I like to snowshoe and do all that kind of thing. So trying to get in as much of that. I have a 1-year-old, so that seems to take up all of my time lately. But I also got a Peloton, so maybe the competitive edge might have to see. I need to ride it more, but just like, you know, the everyday person just trying to move when I can, really. I like yoga. That's good too.
Other questions?
We're going to leave it.
This is a question, maybe some real quick stories. Growing up here, my parents, Scott's grandparents, and Cashwell were pretty good friends, and they used to have a ski race in their backyard, and they had this hill in their backyard that was probably only 10 feet high. It seemed to me like it was the Tiger. It was top to bottom. Anyway, when I was 4 years old, I came in second, and as a result of that race, Hank, I realized I was always going to be a basketball player. Rob, I can't.
There you go. Did your mom send us the thing?
The only stories I can say.
Did your mom send a text message?
Real big Phoenix Coyotes fans. And Erin,
No.
Travis, could you repeat that, please?
yeah, it was just a
Yeah.
story. And Erin, it meant a lot. I'll cheer up here. When you were in the St. Patrick's Day parade.
Thank you.
Yeah, you should see him at weddings. It doesn't go well. All right, any other questions?
This really isn't a question, but I just wanted to take a moment to say, to acknowledge another Olympian who we wish could have been here and would have loved it. We don't want to talk about our own Louis instead.
Yeah, Louis would have been here, except for, you know, the tragic loss of him. If he was here, we probably wouldn't need the other 3 because they wouldn't get a chance to say anything anyway. So, but yeah, no, we wish Louis was around to be part of this whole exhibit, because we know that he would have been really happy to do anything that he could have to help us. So yeah.
Any other questions? This isn't a question, but I was wondering if we could see the medal.
Yeah. Feels a lot heavier when you're not working out all the time. Thank you. Yeah, he's a lot heavier than this too. There we go. It's a little smudged. Yeah. Hasn't been out in a while, so yeah. Thank you for giving me a reason to share it.
So that's what those look like.
A little too long, but it's mainly for Hank because of the less winters we have nowadays. I'm reading the last winter, that book, and he's saying that the last 6 Olympics has been fake snow for skiers, and that's tragic. What do you think about that, Hank? You got powder in Colorado most of the time, but you're skiing
Hank, did you hear that?
I couldn't understand it. I'm having trouble. I can't hear Erin. I can't understand Erin's audio is very muffled.
Okay.
And I can hear a little bit of what Rob is saying, but what was the question?
The question is, do you think there's a difference between skiing on real snow versus artificial snow that they've been using at the last few Olympics?
Well, it depends on where you're skiing, because some snowmaking is very good, some is not so good. But in skiing, it's very important for the track to stay hard so that it is fair for all the racers in the field to have a good, clean run on. We're blessed with good snowmaking here in Montana. Fortunately, especially because this year our snow is not quite as good as it is in other places in the country, like Lake Tahoe, for instance. But I think, especially in the faster events, in slalom, rather in downhill and Super G, it's really important to have good, hard snow underneath you.
All right,
This is for Hank. What is your favorite ski mountain in the U.S.?
What was my favorite ski mountain in the U.S.?
Yeah, favorite ski mountain.
Yellowstone Club in Big Sky, Montana. That's where I am right now. It's where I work. And, but I think my other favorite is Aspen Mountain in Aspen, a lot for sentimental reasons, because we used to train downhill there very early in the morning. And it was really a special experience to be able to do that right in our own backyard. I was living in Colorado at the time.
Last question of the night. With COVID hanging over the Olympics, what's one thing that you experienced that these athletes won't experience?
Well, I guess I'll take a stab at that. My guess is that it's gonna be heavily regulated, you know, and I think when you look at Olympic Village and you're kind of mingling around and you're, you know, to me, like I mentioned earlier, that was one of the cool things for me personally, was being able to, you know, get to meet different athletes, get to hang out with them. You know, I don't know how they're set up over there this year, but my guess would be that they're probably going to be pretty secluded, especially the team sports. I don't know so much on the individual, but the team sports, I would guess, are going to be, you know, pretty quarantined off for the most part.
Yeah, I've seen some kind of behind the scenes footage in all of the dining halls. They've all got cubicles around each spot for athletes, which is a huge bummer because that was always, to Rob's point, a really cool part about it. But I think the biggest is not having your family there. No international fans are allowed, and not any fans outside of China. So I don't know, there won't be the crowds, there won't be that special feeling of it being the Olympics, because for luge for sure, maybe not so much for hockey, that gets some fans. We don't have a lot of fans at many races, so the Olympics is always special in that regard, and I don't think they'll get that feel, especially without friends and family there.
Yeah, Hank, is there something that you think these athletes at this Olympics are going to be missing out because of COVID?
Well, I understand they're not having spectators, and that's always kind of fun to have. It's inspiring to have people cheering for you. Some of them will have lost out on some training because of it. But as long as it doesn't strike while they're there, they should be all right. They'll still want to go for those medals. I see Heather keeping hers warm.
Is that it? All right, I think this is going to have to be the last question.
Sorry, one more. Is Olympic Village really as crazy as the media portrays it to be?
And we want details.
I had a fun time.
I think it's what you make it to. You know, a lot of athletes compete at different points in the games, so the ones that compete at the end, if they're there the whole time, they're probably not, you know, having a blast outside of whatever they're doing. But Luge is definitely at the beginning, so we're able to become spectators and have fun the rest of the time. But I didn't necessarily experience like the craziness that everyone always hears about. I hung out in my sweatpants in the lounge watching events a lot, but there definitely are crazy moments that I witnessed for sure. But I mean, like everything, they definitely pump it up a bit.
Yeah, Hank, did you hear the question?
I did not.
So, was Olympic Village as crazy as it seems to be to the outside spectator?
Yeah, I think it's very exciting because we all had friends there from skiing around the world, and it was really fun. I think after the closing ceremonies, we all traded uniforms and we goofed around and played some soccer in the snow and did fun things. Maybe had a beer or two together. It was fun. It was really fun in the Olympic Village.
All right, well, I'd like to thank our three athletes up here, Hank, Rob, and Erin. Thank you for coming and participating.
Could I add a comment, please?
What's that?
Could I add a comment, please?
Sure.
This was great. And we had one Olympian from Old Forge who wasn't able to be with us today because he passed away unexpectedly a while ago. And Louis Ernstbeck, who lived and had his heart in Old Forge for his entire life. And he thought the Olympics were the greatest thing ever. And he was very, very proud of his participation. And I personally, and I know all the people of Old Forge, miss him terribly. So good on you, Louis. And we know you were there in spirit.
Absolutely. We do have a raffle drawing.
This is for the 2003 John Gatz poster from the Adirondacks National Exhibition of American Watercolors. And the winner is Rich George. So when you're finished, come over here and grab your poster. Congratulations.
All right. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight or this afternoon. We have our Winter in Action special opening reception going on right now. Our bar is open. Hors d'oeuvres will be coming out very shortly. And if you want to go walk through the gallery, we have some of Erin's stuff in there, some other Olympic paraphernalia, I guess, stuff. But it's a really cool exhibit. And next week, or 2 weeks, we have the Chili Bowl here in Gould. It is a twist of the event this year where it is to go only, but you can still come pick out your pottery, get chili from over a dozen places in town, and take it home and enjoy it alone, I guess. But it will be a good event. It's 12 to 3 on February 19th, so we hope to see you then. And again, thank you, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.